Did you catch that one of Garfield's greatest foes appeared right at the beginning of the Garfield movie trailer? The story of Garfield's new movie begins with a very melancholic and sad touch, where everyone felt sorry for the poor guy who lived in a crate. But that was just the prelude to chaos, especially for John, who barely knew Garfield and already had a whole pizza devoured by the orange furball. Plus, imagine the damage he had to pay for after the little guy started eating everything in the restaurant. One of the things he devoured was almost a 2-tier birthday cake. And right there, we see one of Garfield's most detested characters entering the scene. If you look closely, you'll notice a toy clown next to the cake, probably part of the decoration. This clown is none other than Binky the Clown. Garfield despises Binky because he excels at 2 things, eating and sleeping. Since Binky is always making noise, Garfield hates the party clown. Still, Binky loves to play pranks on the orange cat whenever possible. And I'll tell you right away, Binky appears more times in the trailer, and almost no one noticed. And it's not just him, the trailer is full of details and curiosities we've gathered to share in this video. Garfield is the living being on Earth that loves lasagna the most. Many people don't know that the character was originally created for newspaper comic strips, not cartoons or comic books. As the trailer progresses, we see that it wasn't John who adopted Garfield, it was Garfield who adopted John. This is a clear reference to the first comic strip featuring the lasagna-loving cat. In the strip, John introduces Garfield, saying he's his cat, and then Garfield says, "This is John, my cartoonist," referring to John's profession. A beautiful homage.
Oh. Hi there, little buddy.
In the background, we see 2 things that are Garfield's trademarks. One is a photo of John with Garfield and Odie, John's pet dog. Odie is a cheerful and spirited dog, as we can see in the photo. But Garfield always has that expression. Believe it or not, he's always hungry. So he rarely smiles, except when he sees lasagna or some food he really likes.
Say when.
Never, John. Bury me in cheese.
And when we see Garfield, Odie and John at the table, if you look closely, on the fridge there are other photos of the pets, where we see one of Odie alone, which seems to have been taken by himself. Another one that seems to be a selfie of Garfield. And a third photo where we see Garfield and Odie together, with Garfield once again having a grumpy expression, making it clear that he really doesn't like Odie, at least not as much as lasagna.
And that's how I adopted John.
In the trailer, we see John putting on protective gear to bathe Garfield, demonstrating how risky it is. The truth is that bathing cats is actually a very complicated task, since most cats really hate water, and usually they bathe the best cat style, licking themselves. But surely Garfield is too lazy to even do that, so John has to bathe him. And the end result we see is Garfield turning into a huge round ball of orange fur. Which makes him even more like his species, since Garfield, contrary to what many think, is not a stray cat, but a Persian cat, one of the most fluffy, and lazy.
Play. Don't eat his spatula.
No, please, no. Ow, it's so hot. Ow, it's really hurting. Ow, ow, ow.
You deserve to.
Since Garfield is not a fan of baths, maybe he inherited that from his genetics. As we can see, his father doesn't have a very clean appearance. That's because in the scene where we see him with his father inside a train car, Vicky, which is the name of Garfield's father, is sitting in a sack. And if you look closely, you'll know exactly what's inside that bag. On it is written, manure. So the smell of that carriage must have been not very pleasant, to say the least. But I guess it didn't bother Garfield or his father. Speaking of the train, as soon as we see its front, we notice there are 6 numbers and 3 letters, with one of them prominently featuring the letter G. Of course, the G is a reference to the protagonist of the animation, which is Garfield himself, and the other 2 R's refer to the name adopted by railway companies of the past, such as Royal and Railway. In other words, the company name of the train Garfield was on could perfectly be Royal Garfield Railway, perhaps.
You ever jumped a train?
I've never jumped.
Here's that stop.
Really? Where?
Comment below if you think this name sounded right, or if you have any other theories for what those 3 letters and the numbers 1, 2, 3 repeated twice might mean. The genius behind bringing the most voracious cat in animations to life was the cartoonist Jim Davis, who created the comic strip in 1978. When Jim was a child, he lived on a farm and even raised about 25 cats at the same time. Detail: he was asthmatic. but that's where the inspiration for the character that has been around for over 43 years came from. In the Garfield trailer, we see some nice references to the creator of the character at certain moments. One of them occurs after Vicky kicks Garfield off the train, and he is simply thrown back and forth. At one point, he is thrown into a parked motorhome, bouncing and then being thrown again. But if you go back to the motorhome scene and look at the vehicle's license plate, you'll see it says J1MDVS. Now tell me if this acronym isn't a clear reference to the name Jim Davis. And that's not all. If you zoom in on the vehicle, on its side, guess who appears again? It's him, Binky the Clown. It really seems like Binky almost always shows up when Garfield is in trouble. In the motorhome, we find another homage connected to Garfield's creator. Right next to the Binky sticker, there's another sticker with the name Muncie. This is the name of the city where Jim Davis attended Ball State University and graduated in arts and administration. It's also where he still lives today. Another tribute to the boss. Nice. Still in the trailer, we see that the animation team put in some great effort. This is because the tire brand of the vehicle is Lazy Cat. Tell me if this expression isn't just like Garfield. It seems that the people who animated Garfield are also fans of comics, but from a different line. This is because when Garfield is flying around, he crashes into the windshield of a small blue pickup truck. And if you look closely, you'll see the numbers 186 followed by the letters SE and another letter that isn't very clear. But it seems to be 186 SEE. Some people believe this code is a reference to one of the best comic book series featuring the mutant hero Wolverine, which actually includes the Punisher. In fact, Wolverine himself, one of the toughest characters in comic book history, is wearing the mantle of the Punisher. That's why the 1988 comic is considered historic. When John opens the refrigerator door and finds Garfield and his father in there devouring all the food, guess what we find? An Olive Garden bag, the largest chain of Italian restaurants in the US with over 800 locations. A bit of product placement doesn't hurt anyone and helps pay the bills. Right, John? Inside the fridge, we can also see a red drink can that looks a lot like the good old Coca-Cola. But I think Coca-Cola didn't want to pay for the product placement like Olive Garden, so we can't see the brand name. Was Coca-Cola being stingy on this one? Last but not least, in the scene where Garfield and his father are in the living room, behind Vicky, we see the same painting that was at the beginning of the trailer, next to the photo of Garfield with Odie and John. On the painting it says, "Love at first bite." Tell me if this phrase isn't just like Garfield. But in his case, I think he loves not only the first bite, but also the second and the third until all the food is gone. Guys, those were all the curious details and Easter eggs we found in this amazing Garfield movie trailer. I'm craving lasagna now and can't wait to watch the film. And for you to keep enjoying, click on one of the 2 videos on your screen. You'll surely like them.